The Monty Show, a lot to get to. A little breaking Jim Harbaugh news this afternoon.
Now, we wouldn't want to say we told you so.
I mean, we're not
like,
we're humble.
We don't do
whoa,
that. Like, we
whoa,
don't, you know.
Whoa.
Like, we don't do that on this show, Grum.
We are humble, You know.
Program.
Dennis Dodd just put out a story at CBS.com that says Jim Harbaugh negotiates with Chargers. NCAA penalties became sticking point of Michigan contract talks.
Oh, Jim.
Now, now again, I understand that I don't have sources, but I would just like to
Stay hard.
And tell you that, yeah, we told you that Jim Harbaugh had gone back to Michigan as we first and exclusively reported on this show, and he wanted immunity. Michigan said we cannot do that. And now all of a sudden, there's this little detail that was somehow vicariously leaked to Dennis Dodd, which I have been telling you about since November when I was first told about it, which is that if Connor Stallions knew about the scheme, and I have no idea how he wouldn't know, if Connor Stallions knew, Jim Harbaugh knew, and that is a level 1 violation against Jim Harbaugh and the University of Michigan.
Fine Steeler guy.
And I can tell you straight away today that Connor Stallions being terminated might be the most egregious sign Fine
Steeler guy.
That Jim Harbaugh's days at Michigan were numbered, as we told you they were. Jake, I don't think there's any doubt that this is a very, very bad look for the University of Michigan.
All I have to say is what goes around comes around, right? Now, I'm not saying that the chancellor at Michigan knew what sign stealer guy was doing, right? I'm not saying people at that level knew, but the reality of the situation is when you hired Jim Harbaugh, you knew you were taking a risk. Now, if you're the Chargers, this is a little bit different. Pretty hard to cheat in the NFL. You know, a lot of paid professionals doing their thing. Pretty hard to cheat in the NFL. But my point is, you knew that this was a thing. You knew that you were taking risk. You knew that Jim would probably burn your school to the ground, and you knew that you'd pay the price for it, and he would go off to the NFL again. So don't tell me, Michigan fan, that this is conjecture and, you know, we're shocked and we had no idea this would ever happen with Jim. I mean, we've never seen this before outside of his last 5 jobs, right? Like, come on, dude. You knew that this is who this guy was. So for me, this makes perfect sense, right? We saw the NCAA roll out the Jim Harbaugh rules. We knew that they had evidence. That's why you skipped out on your court date that you told everybody you were going to go to and then copped out of. That's why you did that. And now the NCAA is saying, hey, if sign stealer guy knew, Jim had to know. And if he didn't know, he's responsible because guess what? He had the head coach on his name tag. So that's why I say it's a very straightforward proposition. So where does that leave us? Enjoy that national championship. Enjoy what you had. Enjoy the run. Enjoy all the junk you talked because it's over. It's done. They're coming for you. Jim's going to go to the Chargers, and you're going to be left to pick up the pieces. And unfortunately, America's favorite vacuum salesman is not going to be able to fix that for you. So that's why I say the arrogance of Michigan is coming back to get them. And I'm not even saying it's a beautiful thing because it's really not. It's
not at all
for college football.
Yeah, and I think the worst part here is that, you know, and we've been telling you this for about a week. Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are no longer talking. So there's not, and I want to say I told you last Monday or a couple of Fridays ago, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, I have not had substantive contract negotiations for some time now. And I think if we go back and we kind of recap the sourcing that we've had for you, which we were working on to start the show today, which is why we were a little belated, if you will. It goes back to Jim Harbaugh hiring Don Yee on the eve of the college football playoff. This goes back to the questions that so upset the University of Michigan during the Alabama run-up and then the run-up to the national championship and the eventual crowning of Michigan as national champions. All the talk was on, is Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan. All the talk was about why Jim Harbaugh hired an NFL agent. I think there was bitterness, and there was, I think anger is probably a little bit too strong, but there is no doubt in my mind, based on what our sources have told us, that Michigan has bitterness and frustration with Jim Harbaugh and his process of negotiating a somewhat of a return to Michigan, and straight up asking, hey, I want to be immune from termination or loss of wages based on NCAA punishment, because there's no question. And again, Michigan fan, I'm talking directly to you. There's no way to get around the fact that Jim Harbaugh is well aware that he is looking at multiple now level 1 violations, multiple level 2 violations. And I am told that this FBI investigation is very serious for Michigan. I think that is a huge deal. And I just don't know how you get away from that. You have got recruiting violations, you have got a sign stealing scandal, and you have a computer crime scandal. And everybody wants to whitewash this computer scandal away as a Matt Weiss thing. I don't believe, from what I have heard, that it's a Matt Weiss thing. It's a Michigan football via Matt Weiss thing. There are dark days coming to Ann Arbor, and those dark days are going to be spent pining over Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the San Diego, we're now in Los Angeles Chargers, because our sources also tell us the Chargers are laser focused on Jim Harbaugh to be their next head coach. They have a second interview with Jim Harbaugh tomorrow. They expect to make a contract offer to Jim Harbaugh by week's end. And in fact, I was told today that they expect to have an agreement with Jim Harbaugh by week's end. Michigan is in real trouble here, because if Jim Harbaugh leaves, the NCAA is not just going to give Michigan a free pass. They are going to drop the hammer on Michigan as an example. And I think the biggest mistake that Michigan made, and I'll say it again, was almost instantaneously firing Connor Stallions. That was an admission of guilt. I think the second biggest mistake they made was fighting the Big Ten suspension, because you have to have at some point some recognition that the Big Ten and the NCAA were working together. And if we knew it on this show, because we reported it, the Big Ten was working with Michigan and with the NCAA at the same time. They were talking, they were sharing information. You pulled your temporary restraining order, your injunction request, off the bench of a judge who graduated from Michigan law, in fact, played football at Michigan. You pulled that temporary restraining order and injunction at the 11th hour after the NCAA presented the Big Ten with evidence that was overwhelming in the sign-stealing investigation of Connor Stallions in the football program. This cannot end well for the University of Michigan. It can only end well for Jim Harbaugh. And that's why I ask, why is Michigan fan rooting for this guy? Because I have no idea what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's asinine, in my opinion. It's foolish. It's unbelievable to me. And honestly, if you're a Michigan fan, like, and your stance is, hey, you got us a championship and whatever's whatever, I'm fine with that. I mean, if you're cool with, hey, we won a championship, and yeah, it's going to cost us probably 5 years in the program.
Yeah.
Like, if we're being conservative, probably 5 years of just kind of, going through the penalties, not really being relevant in college football, like still making money in your football program. Of course, it's Michigan football. It's always going to make money, but you know what I mean? Like, not really being in the college football playoff picture for a minute. Okay. If you're cool with that, then I'm cool with that. If you're cool with the paying the price of, hey, sign stealer guy, Matt Weiss, the COVID recruiting violations, like all this stuff, if you're cool with the baggage, then that's fine. But my issue is you got guys in college football who showed you it can be done clean. And that's always been my thing with Jim.
And again, I go back to the Florida State collective recruiting booster level 2 violations of 2 weeks ago. They wholly cooperated with the NCAA on that. I'd also remind you that one of the level 1 violations against Jim Harbaugh is a lack of cooperation and transparency. And if Jim Harbaugh leaves, that level 1 violation does not go with him. And I think there's something that a lot of people don't, a lot of people have this idea that if Jim Harbaugh leaves, Michigan's absolved. The problem is that's not the case at all. If you go and read the NCAA rule book on the lack of institutional control charge, that is a university charge that extends to athletic leadership. So if you are going to keep your athletic director in place and Jim Harbaugh is gone, that athletic director is going to be penalized with the university for that. And when we talk about penalized, if Jim Harbaugh leaves, the other thing that you have to remember is he's a guy that's notoriously uncooperative while he is employed. I believe that the NCAA would ask him for information, and I don't believe that he will provide it. Jim Harbaugh is one of those guys who believes in, I think one of the other things that he and Michigan have erred on is this proclamation, and we are innocent, we did nothing wrong, when it is very clear to everybody else behind the scenes through their own admissions. Michigan has not denied, Jim Harbaugh has not denied the things that he did during the COVID period. They have not denied ever, not once, their sign stealing operation. Never. Go back and you look at Michigan and look at the different way that Jim Harbaugh and Michigan have operated here, and you see where the break exists.
Well, you remember what the Big Ten said, right? I think it's a great point. Like the Big Ten said, hey, the punishment is the punishment partially because you never denied what you did. It's always been a well-accepted fact.
But
on both sides.
who did the NCAA deliver evidence against, and who did the Big Ten actually? If you go and read the Jim Harbaugh suspension at the end of the year, Jim Harbaugh is not the guy they were punishing. The Big Ten was punishing Michigan by suspending its football coach for those 3 games. That was the punishment, fully and wholly supported by the NCAA, who hadn't even delivered a notice of allegations against them for the sign stealing situation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I go back to this idea with Michigan fan that, oh, the University of Michigan is going to get off scot-free. Jim Harbaugh is the actor. Jim Harbaugh is not the actor, because remember how the NCAA views this stuff. The NCAA views it as, hey, Jim Harbaugh, did you know? You did? Okay, you're guilty. Oh, you didn't? You're guilty. Hey, athletic director, did you know? You did? Okay, you're guilty. You didn't? You're guilty. It doesn't matter if you knew. You were supposed to know. The athletic director was supposed to know what the football coach was doing and what his staff was doing. So the idea, and you can't go back and you can't find a situation where a coach is, committed. And I think one of the things that I think is also really important here is there's only one other modern era case where a university was handed findings and a coach evacuated the situation. It was USC with Reggie Bush. And where did Pete Carroll go? He went to Seattle. And what happened to USC? USC got smacked. So we can all sit here and we can pretend, right? We can pretend that Michigan's going to get off scot-free. I am telling you now that you are not getting off scot-free.
Well, and look, I think there's a price to pay for playing games. It's what I keep saying, man. Like, there's no getting away from this. And look, notice nobody today said Michigan sucks, right? I'm not saying Michigan sucks. I'm not saying that Michigan's a crappy university. It's a prestigious university amongst its peers. It's an icon, dude. It's Michigan. And whether it's the hockey program, the basketball program, obviously we're talking about the football program today. Like, you got to understand that Michigan is not just like, Poughkeepsie State. Michigan has heritage, glory even.
Absolutely.
Like, there's a lot to Michigan's story. And that's what saddens me and frankly disappoints me so much about the appointment of Jim at Michigan, because first it was, and I think this is important to keep in mind if you're a Michigan fan, and I hope you come around to it at some point. I don't know if you ever will, but it's important to point out that Jim didn't do much winning initially. Jim was much more of the guy who, couldn't beat Lloyd Carr, couldn't beat the guy, his rival, couldn't do it. And so you look at it and you say, okay, is this the guy? And then all of a sudden, just like that, start winning ball games, start crushing people, start being a national power. And everyone said, oh, well, that's not suspicious. Nothing wrong. We're just better than you guys. And now all of this has come out. So from the standpoint of, hey, it's Michigan, heritage, glory, prestige, this was a mistake in my opinion. Did you win a natty? Yes. Did you do it in Nick Saban's final year? Yes. Was that loss Nick Saban sending out gift? Yes. Yes, it was. 100%, like no doubt about it. But it's just frustrating that we have to sit here and deal with this. And if you're a Michigan fan today, I wouldn't be fighting. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I'm standing on my high horse fighting for Jim Harbaugh. I would be sitting here wondering what's next, because Jim's going to the NFL. I don't know if Sharon Moore stays. I don't know if the gang comes back. I don't know if Michigan is cool keeping that staff. I have no idea. I don't know. And that's what's dangerous, because what happens if Michigan is brutal for the next 5 years? We got all these new teams coming into the Big Ten. We know what Lloyd Carr has done this offseason, right? Will Howard, all these dudes he's brought in. Like, Ohio State's in a good place. So for me, I don't think there's any way around it if you're a Michigan fan. You should be disappointed. You should be heartbroken. You should be sad. And honestly, like, I would be looking at it saying, where does this leave us? Like, do you really feel like the national championship justifies everything? Do you really feel like Jim Harbaugh leaving your school or your program, whatever you want to call it, in shambles justifies how long he was there? Because I look at what he did in the past, and this is the same thing. And everyone said, hey, you hate Jim Harbaugh. I remember all the comments last week when I said Jim's not worth it. Jim's not a winner. Jim's not someone who you want to employ. Everyone said, well, the NFC championship games and the Super Bowl run, and, he's done things and now he's won a natty. How can you say he's not a winner? Yeah. Does he do good things on the football field? He does. He does. But that doesn't necessarily make it worthwhile the price you pay. Think about what the 49ers have had to go through, right? Your locker room got torched, right? And honestly, like, the Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick decision was controversial, but you look at that decision and the ripple effect. Dude, the ripple effect lasted 5 years. You didn't get good again until Kyle Shanahan came back in. Like, you didn't get good again. You got a guy playing quarterback for you who everyone's saying is not even competent. I mean, that's the level of fandom that 49ers have had to deal with. Yet you as a Michigan fan are sitting here saying, hey, like, we're innocent. We're getting off scot-free. So I don't think that you can feel good about this. I don't think that you can feel positively. And I would, as far as college football is concerned, I look at this and I say, this is not good. You look at Nick Saban retiring. You look at, Ryan Day not really living up to it. You look at everything that Lane Train's doing in the SEC. Like, the SEC, while you lost Saban, is getting better. The Big Ten theoretically should have gotten better with these new teams. But what of Lincoln Riley, right? You look at Lincoln Riley and you're sitting here saying, hey, is this guy looking at an NFL job? Or is USC going to get back to what it should be, which is a powerhouse every single year? Like, I don't know where college football necessarily goes if Michigan is in shambles. We're sitting here talking about Oregon running the Big Ten. We're sitting here talking about, Jed Fish in Washington trying to figure their way out in the Big Ten. You look at the Arizona situation. It's now coming out that, Jason Shear's reporting that Bobby Robbins gets a memo for every expenditure that happened at Arizona. So I look at this and I say, dude, we're in a time in college football where you're seriously having to consider who is leading our program, whether it's at the president level, the AD level, the head coach level, and what have those people done in the past? Because Dave Hickey had a beautiful career for a long time, and now all of a sudden that's in shambles, right? You look at guys like Jim. Conversely, you look at guys like Nick Saban. Bro, Nick Saban had had one of the best careers we've ever seen. Obviously, GOAT, or if not, one of the 3 best coaches of all time. He had a positive effect on college football. So to me, college football is this drama-filled place that we have to deal with. And I don't know that as a fan, like if you're someone who's been watching since, the BCS days, like where are you at? Like in the comment section, are you happy about it? Like where college football is going? Because I can't, positively or convincingly say that I'm happy about it. And it really bothers me because football, to be honest with you guys, football is not even my number one. Like I like in terms of tiers of sports, like I'm an NBA guy first, then baseball, then football. Like I look at the viewership over the weekend, bro, 50 million views for the NFL game. Like this country's about football. So if you're a college football fan and you've been a fan since the BCS days, like I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. I don't know, what you even begin to look at, because college football has changed drastically. And we're going to get to your comments here. I'm not sure where my guy went here. I'm guessing he took a call. He kind of ran out. So we're going to start reading some comments. Let's see here. Who we got first today? We've got Charlie Sinclair. This deal is getting done today. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's getting done today, right? Like Harbaugh to the Chargers, I think you're probably, again, like we said, end of the week. I think that's probably realistic. You look at the timeline with NFL coaching jobs, it's much more of a situation where they've had to just go through the process and churn out like as many interviews as possible. Not even just for the Rooney Rule, but you look at just all the candidates, like whether it's Vrabel, now you got Pete Carroll, trying to get in on the Chargers opportunity. So for the Chargers, they're obviously going to interview everyone possible, but I would expect, like we reported, I would expect Jim to get signed by the end of the week. Paolo tips us $5. When Jim leaves, his players have 30 days to leave. If he cheats in college to win, how about the pros? Let him burn. Yeah, I mean, obviously the transfer portal has changed the conversation for players. You look at Alabama, you look at Ohio State, you look at Michigan. Guys are going to the league, guys are transferring, like a lot of things are happening. And I don't know, are we good with that? Like, is that a good thing? I think it's a good thing for the players, but I'm not sure that it's a great thing for college football on the whole. You look at the ramifications of the Jed Fish situation and just how many guys, went, and then obviously Noah Fafita didn't leave. So when I look at, Paolo's comment here, appreciate the $5 tip. Like, yeah, they have 30 days to leave, but what's really the best situation for them? Like Judkins goes to Ohio State and everyone loses their mind. Like, I think it's a controversial conversation, to say the least, but at least they're not trapped. And I think that's the biggest thing. Are you okay, bro? Like, what the hell just happened, bro?
Phones are ringing, man. Phones are ringing. Just people watching the show and important people calling. And, I think what is really interesting for me here is that everybody's paying attention to Jim Harbaugh and what's going on in Michigan. That's the fascinating part. And I find it so interesting that the sentiment is, without question, Michigan's in trouble. And I think what triggered this phone call was the Pete Carroll comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Because the expectation, I can tell you from people I've spoken to, is it will be much more severe because Pete Carroll cooperated.
Well, how long was USC down? I mean, what is it, 10 years?
USC, and if memory serves, USC lost 30 scholarships. USC vacated a Heisman Trophy. Like, you look at USC getting a 2-year bowl ban. And at the time, I would remind you, and I should look that up, but I would remind you that USC, there was no bigger, badder MFer in football than USC.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at what USC meant to college football in those moments. Yeah, I think it is a perfect parallel to USC. So, or to Michigan and USC.
So USC's punishments, just so we're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
2-year postseason ban, scholarships lost over the course of a 3-year window. So they're saying, hey, we're not just pulling scholarships this year, but we're going to pull scholarships over a 3-year window so you can't recruit. Obviously, you can't build your program. Vacating old games, including the BCS championship. That's what everybody remembers, of course.
Yep.
Disassociating Reggie, with the Heisman, USC head coach, or Pete Carroll leaving, obviously, so they got beat over the head with it. I mean, there's no way, no how about that. And I think that, again, and we've discussed this many times on the show, we've never seen what we're talking about here with Michigan.
No.
And again, I want to be really clear because I don't want to see it in the comments section. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm saying that nobody got caught speeding on radar by buddies sitting on the side of the road.
We've never seen it at this level.
Yeah.
We've never seen. I think you are looking at Jim Harbaugh probably getting a 5-year show cause order. Because, again, I would point out the subtle differences here. Reggie Bush was the main actor at USC.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, is one of the main actors in this case. Now, in the sign stealing, that's Connor Stallions, but I am told also that there is a mountain of evidence that links Jim Harbaugh to knowledge of that. We'll see if that's true or not. That could be, I'm not convicting Jim Harbaugh of anything in sign stealing until we see it, because I hope people understand just how flagrant and egregious it is to do what Michigan did. And if a head coach was aware of that, that would be stunning and shocking.
Sign stealer guy.
I mean, to carve out a budget, to come up with a scheme, to have staff involved that are paying people that are, it would be so unbelievably over the top when you just don't need to do that because you get all that tape already. Hey,
but why did he do it though?
Because
I think it's the best point.
He hadn't. Jim Harbaugh, until the sign stealing operation allegedly began, hadn't won a big game.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh was in trouble at Michigan. He had not beaten Ohio State. He had not won big games. He had not won a national championship. He had not won, he just wasn't winning big games. And then he was. Now, I think it's also horribly unfair to label Michigan as a secondary team, because they were by far, and I don't care if they knew your signs or not, they were by far the best defense in the country this year. That was unbelievable. And Georgia fan, you're always in the comments every time I say that about Michigan. Michigan was the best defensive, and if we want to just say defensive front, their secondary was very questionable in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They were the best defensive front in the country. And they won the national championship, and you don't do that accidentally. Now, did they employ Jose Altuve as a consultant? Probably. Right? I mean, you got caught red-handed here.
Yeah.
Sign stealer guy.
And I think the fact that you are now seeing everything we've reported for the last 3 months on Jim Harbaugh, do you really think that this is a CBS headline from today?
Yeah.
From Dennis Dodd. Jim Harbaugh negotiates with Chargers. NCAA penalties became sticking point of his Michigan contract talks.
Look at how casual that is in the title. We're not questioning. Nobody's questioning whether penalties are coming, dude. Penalties are coming. Are on the way via first-class mail, bro. They're coming for you.
Yep.
So let's not pretend that it's are we getting? Yeah, you're getting penalized, man.
Yep, I agree. Jay Chapman says NCAA is about to drop their hammer on Michigan. That's never going to happen. They'll get a slap on the wrist compared to what anybody else but Notre Dame and Ohio State would get. So wait, let me just get this right, because you apparently are an expert. What they did to USC, 30 scholarships over 3 years, 2-year bowl ban. And this is a team, USC, that won 2 national championships, and if memory serves, went to 7 BCS bowl games. And the expert come on, this is Michigan fandom thinking that you're going to get off easy.
Yeah, you're in fantasy land, dude.
And it's just not going to happen.
And now you can no longer say it's just us saying it.
Yeah.
Because everybody's saying it now.
Yeah, and I love that. No, you guys don't have sources. You're the only one reporting it. Well, not anymore. We're not.
So what do you have to say to that?
Yeah,
have a good day.
And how?
Yeah.
Hour number 2 of the Monty Show, presented by our good friends at TryDayTrading.com. TryDayTrading.com/Monty. You guys, speaking of paying fines, and before we get to all your comments, TridayTrading.com, they give you a 30-day trial membership for the cost is a $10 charitable donation. You donate $10 to charity, they give you their entire program for 30 days. And then when you graduate their program, they're going to fund a trading account. The number one thing I hear is, Monty, I don't have any money to trade. It doesn't matter. They're taking that excuse away because Tri-Day Trading is going to fund a trading account for you that you can use for a week, a month, the rest of your life. You can stay in that account as long as you want and trade with TridayTrading.com's money, and you get 80%, up to 80% of the profit when you make money with Tri-Day Trading's money. That's how confident they are that you're going to make money when you go through the TridayTrading.com program. Sign up for the 30-day $10 trial membership. No obligation at the end of the 30 days, but I don't think we have a viewer who's gone through the Tri-Day Trading program that has not continued past.
Just crushing it.